What's going on? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone, coming at you from Northern California today. It is beautiful. It's way early in the morning because we're on Pacific time zone, and obviously I'm started in the East and it's messed me totally up, so I'm up way early in the morning shooting a video. Today we're going to talk about lace Alumitones. At the end of this video, we're going to talk about how you can win some of these, because I've got a few of them to give away. And don't forget, this Sunday on the 26th is going to be an intonation class. We're going to talk about how to do intonation. Patreon.com/DylanTalksTone. So we'll talk more about that at the end of this video as well. So first of all, let's talk about lace Alumitones. This has been a super requested video. How these things work, what makes them tick. So first of all, before we get into this, because these are completely different, totally different way of doing things, let's look at the breakdown and how they're built. Alright, so what we have here is basically, I would call it a single turn coil. So there is, all this is a laser cut, or probably water jet actually, cut piece of aluminum. It's a single piece of aluminum with these slots cut in it. And you can see these kind of engineered areas here. But basically what this is, if you were to hold it this way and realize that there's a magnet here and a magnet here, and this piece of aluminum goes around this magnet, and it goes around this magnet in what you could basically term, for these purposes, a single turn coil. So it's got one turn of metal going around one magnet, one turn of metal going around another magnet, and then when you flip it over, it's got stuck on the bottom here. These are those ceramic magnets that you see in if you watch our how lace sensors work video. These ceramic magnets that they use in basically everything. And then this right here is the point of interest. This is a transformer. So what we'll talk about in a minute is why this works, but this is basically an output transformer. So there's one coil here and there's one coil here, and when you look at your wires, you've got 4 wires. The green one is the ground, so it's soldered right underneath there. You see that? And then the other 3 wires, so there's a black wire, there's a black and white wire, there's an orange wire, and there's a white wire. And those 3 wires are hooked up to 2 wires are hooked up to one of them, and the other wire is hooked up to both of them. So you can choose how much of this transformer that you're using. So we're going to talk about why we need that in just a minute. But it's a piece of aluminum with 2 magnets stuck to the bottom and this little tiny output transformer. Pretty crazy, right? So let's talk about how those parts turn vibration of a string into sound. Now we know how a conventional pickup works, right? We've got thousands of winds of wire, which is what we're used to. And we've got a magnetic core, and when the string vibrates and vibrates over that magnetic field, it excites a voltage. It moves electrons in that coil, and those electrons are a voltage, and they get sent to the amp. That's basically how it works. In this situation, it's a little different. We typically think of a coil as those thousands and thousands of winds, right? Well, actually, a coil can be one wind. Like, we could take a wire and just wrap it around a magnet. Like, if my finger was a magnet, we could just wrap that around a magnet once, and that would be a coil. It would work. It would physically work. Remember those experiments we used to do, like in school, where you would take a wire like this and you would wrap it around a nail. It was only a couple of winds, and then you could apply electricity to it, and you could turn it into a magnet. We're basically doing the opposite of that with a guitar pickup. Instead of creating motion with this transducer, we're actually taking motion and creating electricity. It's just backwards. That's all we're doing with a pickup. We don't need tons of winds to do that. Our brains as guitar players is telling us that we need thousands of winds, but we actually don't. This is, in this case, because there are coils all over in other applications outside of guitars called single turn coils. They literally are one turn of metal around a magnet, and they do have applications. So for purposes of our discussion, and I know that this might not be a 100% accurate term for this, but for purposes of our discussion, this is basically a single turn coil. You have a magnet here that's continued on the bottom, and you have one turn of aluminum going around that magnet. And then you have a magnet here, and you have one turn going around that magnet, and they're connected. It's super simple. It's just a stamped piece of aluminum that becomes a single turn coil around that magnet. So what's interesting about this, and we've talked about this in other videos when we talk about guitar pickup construction, the shape of the coil, the mass of the coil, so how much winds there are, how much mass of winds there are, like on a P90 versus a humbucker, affects the tone. So you could do the same thing here. You could shape this aluminum different, and you could change the distance between it and the magnet. You could change how much aluminum is there, how thick the aluminum is, to basically get the same exact thing, to get a level of inductance. Here's the thing though, one turn around a magnet is not very much inductance, meaning when you move the string above there like this and you disturb that magnetic field, one turn of metal around here is not going to be a ton of inductance, which means it's not going to make a ton of voltage, which means it won't really be useful for your amp if there's not enough voltage there to work with. So we take a transformer and we put it on the bottom. This is basically a step-up transformer. And what a step-up transformer is, this is not a coil like a pickup. This is not a transducer. This right here is a transducer. This is a transformer. Basically what this does, sorry, I was thinking more than meets the eye jokes, and it just totally blew me out of. Anyway, what this does is really neat. Basically it takes one voltage and it steps it up to another voltage. So for those of you that are not familiar, a couple other examples of this would be the coil in your car. You have 12 volts in your car, and you need like 25,000 volts to make your spark plug work, right? To the spark to jump across to make your engine run. That coil takes that 12 volts and jumps it up to those thousands of volts, so the spark will make your engine run. Your ballast in your fluorescent lights, same thing. 110 volts on one side, goes through a transformer, comes out the other side, thousands of volts, and then it can ignite the gas in your fluorescent lights, and your fluorescent lights work. Transformers are everywhere. Same exact thing with, for example, your DC adapter that plugs in a guitar pedal, right? That little box, the little wall wart thing. That there's a transformer in there, and all it is it takes 110 volts and it steps it down to a voltage that your pedal can use. It actually goes the other way. It takes a higher voltage and makes it down to a lower voltage. This takes the extremely low voltage that this magnet and this single turn coil makes and steps it up to enough of millivolts, probably still only 300 millivolts, that a guitar will be able to use. Super, super cool. And the way this works is there's 4 wires on here. The green wire, as I showed you in the other little clip, is just grounded to here, the gold part. And then these 3 wires, one is one side of the coil, and then the 2 other ones are selecting the end of this coil or the end of this coil. So one of these coils is like 1.6K, and if you put two of them together, it's like 3.6K. So you can basically choose how much the voltage steps up and how much of this thing you want to use. That's all it really is. It's not coil splitting. It's actually just selecting how high you want the voltage to step up, as far as I can tell. And I read the patent over and over and over and over again last night to try to make sure that I got this right. But as far as I can tell, that's basically what this thing is: a single turn transformer around a magnet, and then a step up transformer to make the voltage useful by your amp. Really cool. Completely different than any other kind of pickup in any guitar. And they do sound different. We're not going to do a sound sample in this video because you know how I feel about that. You can go Google lace Alumitones everywhere and people will play them in all kinds of circumstances, all kinds of music. Personally, I'm not a big fan of them. I think my impression of them is that they sound like I'm playing a recording of myself playing, if that makes sense. There's like a weird disconnection in dynamics. But a lot of people really like them. Jazz players like them. Fusion players like them. These are really, really neat. And they're quiet because this little transformer right here acts as an isolation. So you have a lot less noise. Really, 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 really cool stuff. Super cool stuff. And then their Strat versions are exactly the same, just a different shape. Now, they also have, and we'll talk about this just real briefly. So I have, this is one of their normal ones, right? I also have one of their death buckers. And if you look at the bottom of this and compare it, basically what you have is this death bucker has tons more magnet. Just tons more. And it has a higher resistance on this coil, so it steps up the volt. This little coil is physically larger than this one, so it does two things. It has more magnet here and it steps up more voltage here. Really, really, really cool. Why would you make a pickup this way? Well, we talked about noise. Noise is some people really care about noise. Okay, so I don't, but a lot of people really care about noise and they want them to be quiet. These are very quiet. Also, this is very cheap to make because, and what's really funny about it is people think that this is some kind of space age thing that's going to change everything. I personally think that it was Lace just trying to figure out another cheap way to make pickups, because all of his manufacturing processes and the way he makes pickups, Lace sensors and these things, are way cheaper to make than regular pickups. I think it's a profit thing over a tone thing. That is my opinion. I know people like the way they sound, but they are different. They're not the same. They don't sound the same as a regular pickup. I know that could be a controversial statement, but I believe that he was trying to find a cheaper way to make pickups. Because once you have the tooling set up for this, where it's literally just a stamped, like a water jet cut piece of aluminum stamped into a shape with magnets stuck on the bottom. This little tiny coil right here, wicked cheap in comparison to the amount of copper that you have to put into a regular pickup. So at scale, this is way, 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 way cheaper. These magnets are cheap. Everything about this is cheap. There's nothing expensive about this, even though they've marketed it as a premium product. There's nothing, and this one is gold, there is nothing expensive about this. These are wicked cheap to make. And so I think that is one of the motivations for why they are the way they are. So that's all I got. I tell you what, I want to go ahead on Thursday. We want to give away, I actually didn't do damage to this one. I thought I was going to damage this when I cut it apart. So I guess we have 5 of these things to give away. I have a full set of death buckers. I have a full set of their regular humbuckers, and I now have an extra one of this one that we'll give away. So we've got a bunch of these to give away. So over the next couple weeks at our live things, make sure you watch the live things, because I typically give them away to people that are actually watching our lives on Thursday. We've got some other pickups to give away, so over the next couple weeks I'll make sure that we give this stuff away so that you can try it in your own guitar. And all I would ask is that if I give you a pickup and you try it and you don't like it, give it to somebody else to try. Don't sell it on Reverb. Just just pass it forward. You know what I mean? Pay it forward. Give it to somebody else, and let them try it. If you're not a fan, you know what I mean. The only downside is all I have is gold, so you have to deal with that. But at least you can try them. You know, be kind of cool. The other thing is, this coming Sunday the 26th, is July 26th. We're gonna do one of our Zoom classes. Patreon.com/DylanTalksTone. You can go over there and sign up, and we're going to talk about intonation, and we're going to set up a guitar. We're going to fix the intonation on it. What I want you to do is, if you have a guitar that you're working on, bring it to that class, turn your camera on, turn your microphone on. There's probably going to be a half a dozen of us there at least, and we're all going to work together. We're going to learn about intonation. We're going to set up our guitars, and you're going to be able to actually say, you know, hey, can I have help with mine? And we're literally going to interact and do it together. It's going to be super awesome. So they're really fun. These classes are really fun. So make sure that you go to patreon.com/DylanTalksTone and sign up for that. Thanks for hanging out, and I guess we'll see you Thursday.